Please, I have an appointment. I need to see the office. Just open the gate.
Madam, I've told you already. Your name is not on any list.
Then check again. Check well. I sent my documents. I was told to come this morning.
Madam! This gate is not for standing and shouting, no. Step back small.
You don't understand who I used to be. I used to stand on gates like this one. I used to be the one giving orders.
That may be so, madam. But tonight, you are standing where everybody else stands.
My hands are shaking. I've been standing here since morning.
Madam, are you fine? Let me help you.
I don't need help. I need that gate.
Even if I call inside now, madam, nobody is expecting you. I cannot just open gate for anybody that comes and stands here crying.
I need this job. Please. I have nothing left. Nothing! You don't know what it means to lose everything and come and meet a locked gate. Please, please, madam, whoever you are. 2 minutes, that's all I'm asking.
Oga, madam is around though.
You are quite late. Did you bring all the documents? Hello, Aunty. It's raining.
Who? That voice! Who are you?
Some debts are not paid with money. Some debts are paid with silence, with years, with a rain that refuses to fall. This is one of those debts. 6 years earlier, in a small compound in Umuahia, a girl of 13 buried her mother under a mango tree because there was no money for a proper coffin. Her name was Amarachi. Her father had died 2 years before that, coughing into a wrapper in a hospital corridor because there was no bed for him inside. When her mother followed him, Amarachi had nobody left in the world except a voice on a borrowed phone that said, "Bring her to Lagos. I will take care of her like my own child." That voice belonged to Aunty Ngozi. Aunty Ngozi arrived at the burial in a black SUV with tinted windows, wearing sunglasses even though the sun was hiding behind clouds that day. She hugged Amarachi tightly in front of everyone, and the whole village said, "God has answered this child's prayers. Her auntie is rich. Her auntie has a big house in Lagos. This child will finally rest." Nobody saw what happened after the car door closed. The house in Lekki was bigger than anything Amarachi had ever imagined. Marble floors that reflected the ceiling lights, a swimming pool shaped like a leaf, a kitchen with more equipment than the whole market back home. For one night, Amarachi allowed herself to believe her suffering was over. By the second morning, Aunty Ngozi handed her a bucket and a rag. "This is not a hotel," she said, without looking up from her phone. "In this house, nobody eats what they did not work for. Your cousin Chidima is in SS3, preparing for her exams. You will make sure this house runs smoothly so she is not disturbed. Am I clear?" Amarachi was 13. She had just buried her mother. She said, "Yes, Auntie," because there was nowhere else to go. What followed was not childhood. It was labor disguised as gratitude. Amarachi woke before the sun to scrub floors that were already clean, to fry akara for a family that ate in a dining room she was not permitted to sit in, to wash uniforms for a cousin who called her village girl, the way other people called dogs by name. When Chidima passed her in the hallway, she would sometimes step on Amarachi's foot on purpose and say, "Sorry now," with a smile that had nothing sorry in it. Uncle Emeka, Aunty Ngozi's husband, was a quiet man who built his fortune in construction contracts and spent most of his life avoiding conflict inside his own home. He saw the bucket. He saw the exhaustion in the girl's eyes at night. He said nothing. Silence in that house was its own kind of cruelty. School was promised and never delivered. Next term, Aunty Ngozi would say, folding the promise into her handbag alongside contracts and receipts. Next term, when things settle. 3 years of next terms passed. Amarachi taught herself to read from Chidima's discarded textbooks at night, holding a small torchlight under a wrapper so the light would not wake anyone and invite punishment. There is a particular kind of pain that comes from being fed and unfed at the same time. Fed enough to survive, starved of everything that makes survival worth it. Amarachi learned that pain the way other girls her age learned algebra. By 16, she had become invisible in the way overworked people become invisible. Present in every room, acknowledged in none. She cooked the jollof rice for Chidima's 18th birthday party and was sent to eat in the boys' quarters while music and laughter spilled out of the compound like light from a house she was not allowed to enter. At that party, everything broke. A gold bracelet belonging to one of the guests went missing. Chidima, 3 cups of champagne into an evening she was too young to be drinking at, pointed a manicured finger at the girl carrying trays between the kitchen and the garden. "It's her," she said, loud enough for every guest to hear. "Ask the village girl. Things always disappear when she's around." It was a lie. Amarachi had not touched the bracelet, but in that compound, truth had never mattered as much as convenience, and it was far more convenient for a spoiled daughter's guest to have been robbed by a poor niece than for anyone to search their own pockets. Aunty Ngozi did not ask questions. She did not search the house. She marched into the rain that had just begun to fall, dragged Amarachi across the wet marble and out through the front gate and threw her into the storm with nothing but the clothes on her back. "Thief!" Aunty Ngozi spat, her voice carrying over the drumming rain and the shocked silence of the party guests now gathered at the door. "Get out of my compound before I call the police and let them deal with you the way Lagos deals with thieves." Amarachi stood in the downpour, soaked to the bone, 17 years old, with 3 years of unpaid labor behind her and nothing but rain ahead. She looked at the auntie who had promised to raise her like her own child, and something in her chest went very still, very quiet, the way water goes still just before it turns to ice. "You will remember this gate, auntie. Someday you will stand in front of a gate and beg the way you are watching me leave yours tonight." Aunty Ngozi laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Beg? Me? Small village girl, go and beg life to give you something better than this gutter you came from." She turned and walked back into her warm lit house, and the gate closed behind her with a metal sound that echoed longer than it should have. Chidima watched from an upstairs window, filming the whole scene for her story. She would later delete when the caption she wrote, "When the help forgets her place," began to attract comments she did not expect. Uncle Emeka stood in the doorway for one long moment, his mouth opening as if he might finally speak, before he turned and disappeared back into the house, choosing comfort over conscience, as he always had. Amarachi walked through Lekki that night with no destination, no money, no phone. She slept under the awning of a small provision store, her knees pulled to her chest, rain still dripping from the roof onto her shoulders long after the sky itself had gone quiet. She did not cry. She had cried enough for one lifetime. What she felt instead was something colder and more useful than tears, a decision forming in the dark, the way iron forms in fire. Morning found her outside a small tailoring shop in Aja, where an older woman named Mama Chika took one look at the girl sitting against her shop front, soaked, hollow-eyed, clearly having slept there, and did what nobody in 3 years had bothered to do. She asked her name. She asked if she was hungry. She let her inside. "I cannot pay you," Mama Chika said, handing her a plate of rice, "but I can teach you to sew, and you can sleep in the back room until you find your feet. Nobody survives Lagos alone, my dear, but nobody survives Lagos by lying down." Amarachi picked up a needle for the first time that week, and something in her, something that had been buried under buckets and rags and other people's laughter, began quietly to awake. She learned fast, faster than Mama Chika had seen in 20 years of teaching apprentices. Where other girls saw fabric, Amarachi saw structure, movement, the way a woman's shoulders could be made to look like they were carrying a crown instead of a burden. She sewed by day and studied for her WAEC by candlelight at night, borrowing textbooks, sitting for the exams as an external candidate with money she saved from tips, coin by coin, for 2 years. She passed with results that made Mama Chika cry harder than Amarachi had cried the night she was thrown out in the rain. A small loan from Mama Chika, a corner table at a Lekki trade fair, and a single dress, a reconstructed Ankara gown with structure copied from a magazine and pride sewn into every seam, was all it took to catch the eye of Mrs. Folashade Bello, a Lagos fashion executive, scouting new talent for her growing label. "Who made this?" Mrs. Folashade asked, running her fingers along a seam so clean it looked machine perfect, despite being entirely handwork. "I did, ma," Amarachi answered, standing straighter than she had stood in years. "Come and see me on Monday," Mrs. Folashade said, sliding a card across the table. Lagos does not need another tailor. It needs a designer who understands pain and turns it into something people want to wear. Amarachi did not sleep that weekend. She showed up Monday morning in her one good outfit, portfolio of sketches drawn on the backs of receipt paper tucked under her arm, and walked into a boardroom that would change the rest of her life. 5 years is a long time. It is long enough for a girl thrown into the rain with nothing to become a name printed on the front of a Lagos fashion house. It is long enough for late nights over sketch pads to become a signature line sold in 3 countries. It is long enough for the debt of a slammed gate to come due. Amarachi Obi became, in industry write-ups, the quiet force behind one of Lagos's fastest-growing fashion houses, a description that made her smile privately, because quiet was exactly what they had trained her to be, and force was exactly what that silence had become. She bought Mama Chika a proper shop with her name on the signboard before she bought herself a single new pair of shoes. She never forgot who opened a door when a gate had been slammed in her face. She built her own company 2 years after that, a design house bearing her own name with a glass building in Victoria Island, a staff of 40 and a gate of its own, guarded, gleaming, the exact opposite of the one she had once been dragged across. Meanwhile, the house in Lekki had begun slowly and then all at once to fall apart. Uncle Emeka's construction contracts dried up after a government audit exposed inflated invoices across his firm. The same shortcuts that had built the marble floors and the leaf-shaped pool came apart under scrutiny like fabric with no proper seam. 2 of his biggest projects collapsed, one of them literally, a building that failed inspection and crumbled before completion, taking his reputation down with it. Contracts disappeared, partners disappeared, the house that gratitude had never been welcome in began to lose its foundation, the same way it had once denied a child hers. Chidinma, raised on the belief that beauty and a comfortable last name were qualifications enough for anything, discovered too late that neither survives contact with real consequence. A business she started with her father's dwindling money, an online boutique riding on borrowed glamour, collapsed within a year, buried under debts she had no discipline to manage, and a lifestyle she refused to shrink to match her income. The videos she once posted mocking a village girl's poverty were dug up by strangers online during an unrelated scandal, and for a brief humiliating season, Chidinma became a name people used as a warning rather than an aspiration. Aunty Ngozi watched her husband's empire crumble and her daughter's future collapse in the same 18 months, and something that had always lived comfortably above consequence finally came down to meet it. The bank took the house in Lekki on a Tuesday morning. Aunty Ngozi stood outside the gate she had once thrown a child through, watching men in official jackets change the locks on marble floors that no longer belonged to her. And for the first time in her life, she understood what it felt like to stand outside looking in. Word travels fast in Lagos business circles, and it was a mutual acquaintance, someone who did not know the history, who meant no harm at all, that mentioned to Aunty Ngozi over a cup of tea meant to comfort her that a rising design house downtown was hiring experienced administrators, and that the owner, a young woman named Amarachi, was known for being unusually generous towards people rebuilding their lives. Aunty Ngozi did not make the connection. It had been 6 years. The names people carry in villages are rarely the names Lagos remembers, and grief has a way of erasing details that shame prefers forgotten. All she knew was that she needed work, needed money, needed anything, and pride, the one possession the bank could not repossess, was the last thing she had left to spend. She dressed carefully that morning, in one of the few good outfits she had not yet sold, and took 2 buses to Victoria Island because she could no longer afford fuel for a car she no longer owned. The building rose in front of her, glass and steel catching the morning light, a gate with a security post exactly like the one she had once been dragged across. She used to stand behind, except now she stood in front of it, on the outside, holding a folder of documents with hands that had once thrown a soaked 17-year-old girl into a storm. "Good morning," she said to the guard, straightening her spine the way she used to straighten it giving orders. "I am here to see about the administrative position. Please, can I come in?" Rain began to fall. The same warm, sudden Lagos rain that arrives without warning and leaves without apology. And Aunty Ngozi stood at the gate without an umbrella, exactly as someone else had once stood without one, exactly at that hour, exactly in that weather, as though the sky itself had kept the appointment. The guard checked his list, found no scheduled visitor by her name, and told her politely but firmly that she would need to wait outside until someone from the office could confirm her appointment. 15 minutes passed, then 30. The rain did not relent, and neither did the gate. A black SUV pulled up to the entrance, tinted windows beading with rainwater, and the gate that had refused Aunty Ngozi for half an hour rolled open immediately, obediently, the way gates open only for the people who own them. Aunty Ngozi stepped forward instinctively, folder pressed to her chest, and called out toward the car, "Please, please, I am here for the job. Nobody will let me in. Please, madam, just 2 minutes of your time." The window rolled down slowly, and there, dry, composed, dressed in a tailored suit that fit like architecture, sat the daughter of the woman she had buried under a mango tree 7 years before. Amarachi looked at her for a long moment through the rain, recognition arriving slowly, and then all at once, the way thunder always follows lightning if you wait long enough. "Hello, Auntie," she said quietly. "It's raining." The folder slipped from Aunty Ngozi's hands and hit the wet pavement, papers scattering into puddles she no longer had the strength to chase. The window rolled back up. The SUV pulled forward into the gate that opened only for her now, and Aunty Ngozi stood exactly where she had once stood on the other side of a very different gate, in a storm the world seemed to have saved specially for this moment, understanding at last that some deaths, no matter how long delayed, always find their way home. Amarachi did not call security to remove her that day. She did something far more devastating. She had her assistant deliver an envelope to the gate. Inside it, a modest sum of money and a single handwritten note that read, "This is not for the job. This is for the woman who took me in when my mother died, before she decided gratitude was a debt she'd rather I paid with my whole childhood. I forgive you, Auntie, but I will not be building anything with you again. Some houses are better rebuilt alone." She did not reopen that gate. She did not offer the job. She did not invite Uncle Emeka's calls or Chidima's tearful, much too late apology video that circulated briefly online before disappearing into the algorithm's short memory. Amarachi chose peace instead of reunion, distance instead of revenge, and something quieter than either. The simple, unshakable knowledge that she owed nothing to the people who once decided she owed them everything. Mama Chika still runs her shop in Aja, now 3 times its original size. A portrait of Amarachi's first Ankara gown framed proudly above the register. Amarachi visits every month without fail and sits on the same low stool she sat on the night she arrived soaked and homeless, and eats rice from the same kind of plate, because some kindnesses deserve to be remembered exactly as they were given. As for the gate in Lekki, the one with the marble floors and the leaf-shaped pole, it belongs now to strangers who will never know what was buried under its foundation, or what it cost the girl who once stood outside it, dripping, 17, and utterly alone, to build a gate of her own that would never close on anyone the way that one closed on her. Some debts are not paid with money. Some are paid with rain, with silence, with years, and with a single quiet sentence spoken through a rolled-down window on a storm-soaked Lagos morning. If this story moved something in you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story is coming, and it might just be the one that heals the part of you still waiting for your own gate to open.